Welcome to the IMAA Academy e-learning series. This is Audio 101. At the completion of this module, you'll all be well versed in all audio formats, from radio, podcasts, and audio streaming. You'll also be able to identify and understand the fundamentals of planning, buying, and booking audio, along with measurement tools for an effective campaign. This module will take you no longer than 45 minutes to complete, along with a short exam at the end. Enjoy your learning experience and good luck with Audio 101. I think what makes a great audio ad is one that takes advantage of the creativity of audio. So it's using a really singular sense, our hearing. So how can we make the most of that and connect with people in a really personal way? It thinks about the different cues that you've got when you're listening to something. So thinking about the voiceover artist that you're using, the tone of voice that they're giving, all the ways that we can connect with people, the music, the sounds. There's a big emphasis now on brands doing sonic audio logos, so thinking about what that means for a brand. Is it Mazda doing zoom zoom? Is it Netflix and their ta-dum sound? What are the things that connect the brand with the listener and make it a really powerful way to talk to them and drive memorability? That's what we want to get out of our ads, is for people to remember our brands and think about them when they're in the moment of purchase or making a decision.
A great audio ad is really, first and foremost, understanding the environment that you're going to run that content. And I talk about AM versus FM, and even in podcasts and online audio these days is really important to understand your audience and creating content and messaging that's targeted for that audience. And I use AM versus FM as probably the easiest example. Most AM stations are certainly targeted at an older skew audience. So the type of message there often is more direct, more succinct. Live reads happen more often in that environment, versus the music stations and the FM stations. You can use jingles, music, background, and those types of pieces of content that can go with a message to get your message across.
When you talk about audio ads, what makes a really great one is when you make the most of the way it's being delivered. So really ensuring that there's a tone of voice that's not only suited to the brand, but also to the environment that it's being delivered through. Something that has some energy, is going to cut through the clutter and what's around it, but also really clear purpose and a really clear call to action, so the audience knows what they're hearing as well and what the benefit of it is for them.
Audio you can include for a lot of different reasons in a campaign. One of the most typical ways is when you're trying to build frequency or drive action for a brand. So you might be using a TV campaign to drive your awareness, and then start using radio to complement that and drive frequency, so people are hearing your ad more often, and driving action. So getting people to think about, okay, yes, I want that. What am I going to do, and take an action and do that. I think audio is also really powerful when we're trying to connect in with different communities. So, the advent of so much podcasting means that there's a whole lot of different ways that you can talk to people in different passion points. So being able to do that in a really focused and singular way, and often very one-to-one sort of moment with your potential customer, means that it's a really powerful and great way to connect an opportunity.
Audio is a really important part of the media mix. We very rarely use it standalone, but there are brands that have had really successful campaigns just using audio standalone. We often like to use it as a part of a broader media mix to complement things like TV and digital. We talk about trying to be seen at different touch points across the day. We love breakfast and drive, so when people are on the move, we like to include audio at those particular times when people aren't necessarily using broadcast from a TV, or they're on their phone and potentially complement what they're doing with a second screen and so on. So trying to use audio as a secondary medium, we find really, really beneficial to seeing increased reach to different campaigns.
It's interesting talking about audio and when it should or shouldn't be included, because it can play a different role pretty much the whole way through the funnel. Just depends how you use it and what format and what placement you're going to be looking at. So from an awareness point of view, or wanting to change perceptions, when you've got that storytelling piece, when we're using talent, integration or sponsorships, you can really bring that to life because you've got the space to have a bit of impact and gusto into the story. But at the same time, shorter formats in that 10 or 15 second space, you can have a really clear, clean retail message. As long as you've got a strong call to action and that sense of urgency, it plays a really nice role at that tail end of the funnel as well.
Lots of brands work best in audio. It's about matching your objective and what you want to get out of radio, what role it's playing in the campaign. So whether you're looking to be informative and give people more information about what to do, whether you're trying to drive a particular campaign or moment, it could be, you're pushing towards Black Friday, so it's a really singular focus to do this weekend or go online now. So it's really about thinking about what you want people to do and how radio can do that. It's a very flexible media.
Funny enough, all brands could use audio. It's actually understanding what you're trying to achieve with your campaign. So there is actually no particular brand that will work more or less. It's actually understanding what you're trying to achieve. Large businesses use it and also small businesses use it. So right down from the Toyotas to the startup business who wants to just get going, audio can be a great space for getting your message across to a really defined targeted audience.
From my perspective, it's really interesting talking about which brands do or don't belong in a channel, because I actually think it's more about the purpose than it is about the brand and about what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do. The only watch out, I think, really needs to be about how visual that brand or product is. And if you need that visual stimulus to sell it or tell the story, then it becomes hard to use audio. But outside of that, you can really utilize the channel for almost any category, but you have to have the right story. You have to have the right message to be able to convey that across with just that one sense.
There's not many brands that should avoid audio. I think it's thinking about what you're, again, wanting to communicate to your customer. If you are a new brand that relies heavily on a visual cue, like your packaging, radio will be a hard channel to launch a campaign with. So if you're a new brand of water and you need people to look at the supermarket shelf and see, yes, that's a brand I recognise, audio is probably not the one that's going to do that. But if you've already established that, then you're just using the cues that people already have known about your brand. So I think that's probably one of the few occasions where radio doesn't come to mind as an opportunity to explore.
Brands that need a very strong visual explanation, we work with a couple of brands that are really hard to understand. And to get that message across in a 30-second radio ad is really difficult. You actually need images and pointers explaining exactly what that product does. So they're the types of brands that potentially wouldn't use radio to start with until they've got strong brand awareness.
There's a few mediums that work really nicely with audio. One is out of home. So they're both channels where you can capture people out and about. So you might be on your way to work, on your way to school, and so you can see your outdoor bus shelter poster or your billboard, and then you're hearing your audio out at the same time and you're capturing people on that commute. The other is search. So being able to capture people and say, search now for so-and-so offer, you're able to get that continuity of message and pull people through to a conversion. And then mobile advertising as well, anything related to mobile, because you're capturing people when they're out and about as well and complementing that radio experience.
We talk about other mediums that work really well with radio, and we've seen success and campaign effectiveness, in particular in the outdoor and the TV space. We love running campaigns with several different media touch points. And audio can often complement a campaign that visually you see in the broadcast or outdoor space that you also then are hearing at different touch points throughout the day, in particular breakfast and drive. Audio is also really interesting today, is that you shouldn't just necessarily look at audio as radio, but also what it can do in podcasts. We've got more and more clients entering the Spotify and the podcast space. And what's really important there is, we believe, is context. So when you've got a product that's got some sort of contextual environment that it needs to play in, finding podcasts and Spotify channels to run different types of commercials in those contextual environments we see are working really, really strongly. And the example I give there is we've got a fitness-based client and finding different running playlists. We run a lot of ads in that environment, talking to people while they're on the move and talking about that particular product. And that's a great example of audio working together in a few different environments.
With an audio channel, the response to actually reacting to what's being said and what comes through in a message on audio advertising, I think you need that digital support because it becomes that next step and that next behaviour. So having a digital campaign where people can then actively search for your brand or your product and then connect the story through those different channels makes a really big difference.
As soon as you start planning for any particular channel, but audio particularly, I think you think about what that experience is and you can think about it from your own perspective. So when do you want someone to hear your ad? What's the time of day? What's the day of week? Is it a particular moment in the campaign? How often do you want to be hearing them, do that, designing that around that opportunity and thinking about the different types of audio that you've got in your toolbox to work with, whether it's podcasting for that passion point of your audience, whether it's broadcast reach, whether it's a particular announcer that you want to align with. There's so many different ways that you can think about it, but thinking about what you want your consumer to take away from it and building it around that.
Success for any campaign is purely driven by sales. That's something that we work really strongly with our clients, is to understand the sales data or increase in brand awareness. They're the two key mechanisms that we're really looking for to understand the effectiveness of any campaign. And it's very hard to identify one Spotify ad or one radio ad, the actual effectiveness of that spot. But what you can see over a period of time is the increase in sales or the increase in brand awareness along a journey introducing this particular media. So we're constantly working with our clients, and this is where the world's changed. It's not just about delivering media, it's also understanding the effectiveness and talking to your clients about what success looks like for them and the increase in their KPIs, whether that be brand or sales, to measure that effectiveness.
Measuring success in audio or any channel really comes down to what that purpose and objective was. So you have your media metrics, you can look at reach, you can look at frequency, but it depends what you were trying to do, what measurement you should really be looking at. We can look at reach, and it's important to make sure that we're using those standard metrics, but at the same time, I'd like to work with my team to look beyond those. So if it's a brand campaign, what brand tracking do we have? Are we seeing an impact and an uplift or a shift in the behaviour of those consumers? But if it's more of a sales objective and that's a really strong call to action to attend or buy or act, then actually looking through to that final purchase or action and measuring the impact on that is really beneficial on top of those media metrics, so you can see how it funnels all the way through to behaviour.
The very first thing I say to new people in the industry is actually spend time in it. So listen to AM. You might not be in that age demographic, but it's to understand the different channels and the options out there. It's to understand the different options that FM write. It's to understand the regions and areas that they're talking to. It's also to get into the podcast space, listen to podcasts, listen to different, music channels online and these sorts of things. And not only that, not just in your area, go interstate, go overseas. So find out what's going on, not just in your little hub, but a much broader hub. We're good at what we do down here, but what's going on outside of Australia often's very different, and that's what might come here as well. So for me, it's immerse yourself in everything that you can do in this space, not just radio and audio and TV and print and digital. It's everything. If you're going to be in this particular role, then immerse yourself in and take in and consume. Be a consumer and try and put your mindset in the mindset of the demographic that potentially you're trying to target with different campaigns.
When it comes to buying and planning audio, I think my best advice is think outside the box. I mean, spots and dots play a role and they're really important, whether that's across radio or digital audio. but you can be so much more creative than that, and actually thinking about the role it's playing and the creativity that you can bring to the channel makes a much more engaging campaign.